The evolution of fashion, 1960s to 2000s, is more than just clothing. It's a mirror reflecting the spirit of the times. Over the decades, style has evolved in response to cultural revolutions, social movements, and technological advancements. From the rebellious miniskirts of the 1960s to the futuristic aesthetics of the 2000s, every era tells a story. But how did we get here? Join us on a journey through time as we unravel the transformation of fashion from the 1960s to the 2000s, discovering the trends, icons, and influences that shaped each decade. The 1960s, breaking the mold. The 1960s were a time of radical change. The world was shifting. Civil rights movements, feminist waves, and the space race fueled a sense of rebellion and innovation. And fashion? It was no exception. At the heart of the 1960s, fashion was mod culture, a youth-driven movement that rejected the conservative styles of previous decades. Inspired by the sleek, futuristic aesthetic of the time, mod fashion embraced bold geometric patterns, sharp silhouettes, and an explosion of color. London became the epicenter of this new look, thanks to designers like Mary Quant, who introduced the mini skirt, a daring departure from the modest hemlines of the past. Twiggy, the world's first supermodel, embodied this new era. With her pixie haircut, exaggerated lashes, and boyish figure, she became the face of mod fashion. Women paired their mini skirts with go-go boots, a knee-high footwear trend that added a playful yet edgy touch to their outfits. Meanwhile, men sported tailored suits with narrow lapels, embracing a sharp, modern look, influenced by British rock bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. But mod style wasn't the only fashion movement defining the decade. Across the Atlantic, the first lady of fashion, Jacqueline Kennedy, set the standard for elegance. Her pillbox hats, tailored suits, and oversized sunglasses made her a timeless fashion icon. Unlike the youthful mod aesthetic, Jackie's sophisticated look resonated with high society and older generations who preferred classic refinement over bold experimentation. As the decade progressed, countercultural movements began to rise. By the late 1960s, the hippie revolution had arrived, bringing with it bohemian influences, tie-dye prints, and flowing maxi dresses. This shift marked the beginning of the free-spirited fashion era of the 1970s, where self-expression took center stage. Fashion was no longer just about looking good. It was about making a statement. And as the world moved into the 1970s, the disco ball was about to start spinning. The evolution of fashion, 1960s to 2000s. Part 2, the 70s and 80s fashion. As the 1960s gave way to a new decade, the world embraced a more relaxed, expressive, and flamboyant approach to fashion. The rebellious energy of the previous decade evolved into a mix of bohemian freedom and disco glamour. The 1970s were here, and they were all about individuality, self-expression, and movement. The 1970s, bohemian freedom and disco fever. The early 1970s carried over the hippie movement, a cultural wave fueled by anti-war sentiments, environmental activism, and spiritual exploration. Fashion reflected this free-spirited mindset with flowy fabrics, earthy tones, and handcrafted details. Fringe vests, bell-bottom jeans, peasant blouses, and floral maxi dresses became the uniform of those who rejected mainstream society. Accessories like wide-brimmed hats, beaded jewelry, and oversized sunglasses completed the look. But the bohemian era didn't last forever. As the decade progressed, a new, electrifying trend took over: disco fashion. The nightlife scene, dominated by the flashing lights of clubs like Studio 54 in New York City, gave birth to a style that was bold, glamorous, and unapologetically flashy. Men and women alike embraced shimmering fabrics, metallic jumpsuits, and skin-tight silhouettes that sparkled under the dance floor lights. Bell-bottoms grew wider, platform shoes got higher, and polyester shirts became the go-to staple. For women, halter tops, sequined dresses, and fur coats became synonymous with disco, while men rocked silky button-down shirts, often left open to reveal gold chains. No one embodied disco fashion more than John Travolta's character in Saturday Night Fever, 1977. His iconic white three-piece suit became a symbol of the era, cementing the disco aesthetic in fashion history. But disco wasn't the only trend dominating the decade. Punk fashion was also on the rise, fueled by rebellion and counterculture angst. With roots in London and New York, punk style was characterized by ripped jeans, leather jackets, safety pins, and spiked hair. Bands like the Ramones and the Sex Pistols turned the movement into a lifestyle, inspiring young people to reject mainstream trends and embrace a rough DIY aesthetic. By the end of the decade, disco began to fade, but its influence on nightlife and party fashion was undeniable. Meanwhile, punk's raw energy would carry into the 1980s, where everything was about to get bigger, bolder, and brighter. The 1980s, the decade of excess. If the 1970s were all about self-expression, the 1980s took that concept concept and amplified it. The motto was simple: bigger is better. Fashion in the 80s was defined by bold colors, oversized silhouettes, and flashy details. Whether it was power dressing in the corporate world, neon streetwear, or edgy punk styles, the decade was all about making a statement. One of the most recognizable trends of the era was power dressing. With more women entering the workforce, shoulder pads became a symbol of confidence and authority. Corporate fashion featured boxy blazers, high-waisted trousers, and pencil skirts, a look popularized by TV shows like Dynasty and icons like Princess Diana. The goal? To exude strength and professionalism in a competitive, male-dominated business world. Outside the office, bright colors and exaggerated silhouettes ruled casual fashion. Neon sweatshirts, spandex leggings, leg warmers, and oversized graphic tees became everyday staples. Workout fashion exploded thanks to the rise of aerobics culture, with figures like Jane Fonda leading the fitness craze in vibrant leotards and headbands. For the younger crowd, preppy and punk styles coexisted. The preppy look, inspired by Ivy League fashion, featured polo shirts, pastel sweaters draped over shoulders, and pleated skirts. Meanwhile, the punk scene evolved from its raw 1970s roots into a more theatrical, rebellious aesthetic. Spiked jackets, fishnet stockings, combat boots, and dramatic makeup defined the punk and goth subcultures of the decade. Then, there was the rise of music-driven fashion. No one defined 1980s style more than Madonna. Her mix of lace tops, layered jewelry, fingerless gloves, and teased hair turned her into a trendsetter overnight. On the other end of the spectrum, Michael Jackson's red leather jacket from Thriller became one of the most iconic fashion pieces of all time. As the decade came to a close, the world was on the brink of another major shift. The flashy, materialistic energy of the 80s would soon give way to the relaxed, effortless style of the 1990s, where minimalism, grunge, and hip-hop influences would take center stage. The evolution of fashion, 1960s to 2000s, the 1990s and the 2000s. After the vibrant excess of the 1980s, the 1990s arrived with a radically different approach to fashion. The new decade embraced casual, effortless style, driven by grunge, minimalism, and hip-hop influences. It was the era where fashion became more relaxed, rebellious, and deeply intertwined with music and pop culture. The 1990s, rebellion and relaxation. The 1990s were all about stripping away the loud, exaggerated looks of the previous decade in favor of a more natural and subdued aesthetic. This shift was largely influenced by the grunge movement, a genre of music that rejected mainstream glamour in favor of raw, unpolished expression. One of the most defining looks of the decade was grunge fashion. Inspired by bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden, flannel shirts, ripped jeans, oversized sweaters, and Doc Martens boots became the uniform of a generation that embraced anti-fashion. Unlike the carefully curated outfits of the 80s, grunge was messy, unstructured, and effortlessly cool. The look often featured dark, muted colors, layered clothing, and an intentionally thrown-together vibe. At the same time, minimalism emerged as a counterbalance to the chaos of grunge. Designers like Calvin Klein and Helmut Lang championed clean lines, simple silhouettes, and monochromatic palettes. Slip dresses, high-waisted jeans, plain crop tops, and muted tones dominated the high-fashion world, while brands like Gap and J. Crew popularized a more laid-back, everyday approach to minimalist dressing. While grunge and minimalism ruled the alternative crowd, hip-hop fashion was making a bold statement on the streets. With rap music surging in popularity, artists like Tupac, Notorious B.I.G., and Aaliyah set the tone for urban fashion. Baggy jeans, oversized jerseys, bucket hats, and Timberland boots became staples in hip-hop culture. Brands like Tommy Hilfiger, FUBU, and Karl Kani embraced the style, designing collections directly influenced by hip-hop artists. Meanwhile, the world of pop music gave birth to playful, youthful fashion trends. Clueless, 1995, popularized plaid skirts, knee-high socks, and pastel cardigans, while artists like Britney Spears and the Spice Girls championed crop tops, platform sneakers, and colorful accessories. Denim was another major player in 90s fashion. From denim overalls and baggy jeans to denim jackets and even head-to-toe denim looks, the material was everywhere. Brands like Levi's and Guess dominated the casual wear scene, making jeans the ultimate wardrobe staple. As the 1990s came to an end, the world braced itself for a new millennium. Technology was advancing, pop culture was more influential than ever, and fashion was about to enter an era of bold experimentation and futuristic aesthetics. The 2000s. The age of Y2K fashion. The early 2000s were shaped by tech-driven optimism and celebrity culture. With the dawn of the internet age, fashion took on a futuristic, experimental vibe. At the same time, Hollywood celebrities, pop stars, and reality TV personalities became the ultimate trendsetters, influencing everything from low-rise jeans to oversized sunglasses. One of the biggest trends of the era was Y2K fashion, defined by metallic fabrics, futuristic prints, and shiny accessories. This look was inspired by the excitement surrounding the new millennium. Designers like Jean-Paul Gaultier and Balenciaga experimented with space-age silhouettes, iridescent fabrics, and bold digital graphics. Meanwhile, everyday fashion incorporated chunky sneakers, tiny sunglasses, and tech-inspired accessories like metallic handbags and flip phones. Perhaps the most defining and controversial trend of the 2000s was denim on denim. From Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake's infamous matching denim outfits at the 2001 American Music Awards to the rise of distressed, embellished, and ultra-low-rise jeans, denim was everywhere. Brands like True Religion, Rocawear, and Von Dutch became household names, pushing denim to new extremes. Hip-hop fashion also evolved, with rappers like Jay-Z, 50 Cent, and Nelly popularizing baggy jeans, oversized jerseys, and flashy accessories like diamond-encrusted chains and grills. The rise of sneaker culture saw brands like Nike and Adidas collaborating with hip-hop artists, leading to the dominance of Air Force Ones and other statement sneakers. At the same time, boho chic made a comeback thanks to style icons like Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, Sienna Miller, and Nicole Richie. Flowy maxi dresses, oversized sunglasses, fringe bags, and gladiator sandals defined the carefree bohemian aesthetic that dominated music festivals like Coachella. Meanwhile, the world of pop culture introduced Paris Hilton's It Girl style, complete with velour tracksuits, thanks to juicy couture, rhinestone-studded accessories, and oversized designer handbags. This era marked the height of logo mania, where designer brands like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and Chanel made their logos a bold part of fashion, often covering bags, clothing, and shoes. The 2000s were also the era of fast fashion. Brands like H&M, Zara, and Forever 21 made trendy clothing more accessible than ever, allowing consumers to quickly adapt to the ever-changing fashion landscape. With celebrity fashion dominating the media and red carpets dictating the latest styles, trends were cycling faster than ever before. As the decade ended and the 2010s began, fashion took another turn, moving away from excess and logo-heavy styles toward a more sustainable, streetwear-driven, and nostalgic approach. The evolution of fashion continues, shaped by culture, music, and technology, proving that style is more than just fabric. It's a living, breathing reflection of society itself. Conclusion: fashion as a reflection of time. From the rebellious miniskirts of the 60s to the flashy disco fever of the 70s, from the bold power suits of the 80s to the effortless grunge of the 90s, and finally to the celebrity-driven Y2K fashion of the 2000s, fashion has constantly evolved alongside culture, technology, and social change. Each decade tells a unique story. Whether it's political movements, musical revolutions, or Hollywood influence, fashion is a time capsule of history, capturing the essence of every era. Even today, we see past trends making comebacks, proving that fashion is a continuous cycle of reinvention and nostalgia. As we move forward, the question remains, what will define the next era of fashion? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: style will always be more than just clothing. It's a reflection of who we are, where we've been, and where we're going.